No one deserves this horse. That sentence hits different when you really sit with it, because it's not just about an animal standing tired and thirsty under a burning sky. It's about how cruelty sneaks into the world quietly, how suffering gets normalized, and how kindness, even when it's small, can feel like rebellion. Somewhere out there, a horse stands tied to a tree with cracked earth under its hooves, ribs showing, eyes dull, not because it was born weak, but because someone failed it. And the truth is, that horse didn't do anything wrong. It didn't mess up. It didn't deserve punishment. It didn't earn pain. It just existed, trusted humans the way animals always do, and got dealt a rough hand. That's the part that messes people up when they really think about it. Innocence doesn't protect you. Kindness doesn't always get returned. And strength doesn't guarantee mercy. We like to believe cruelty has a reason. We tell ourselves stories so we can sleep at night. We say maybe the owner was broke, maybe times were hard, maybe life got messy. And sure, life does get messy. Bills stack up, pressure hits, and people feel trapped. But none of that excuses neglect. None of that explains away tying a living being to suffering and walking away. In America, we talk a lot about freedom, about rights, about second chances. But compassion is supposed to come with that package. When you own an animal, you take on responsibility. That's not optional. That's not a when it's convenient deal. That's a promise. And breaking that promise leaves scars that don't always show on the outside. The thing about horses is they're strong as hell, but they're also sensitive. They feel fear, hunger, loneliness, and pain in a way that's real and deep. They remember. A horse that's been mistreated doesn't just shake it off. It carries that trauma in its body, in the way it flinches, in the way it hesitates to trust again. People forget that animals aren't props. They're not tools you toss aside when they stop being useful. They're living souls that depend entirely on us. When that trust gets broken, it's not just neglect, it's betrayal. And betrayal leaves a mark. No one deserves this isn't just a caption. It's a mirror. It forces us to look at how often suffering gets ignored because it's inconvenient. How many times have people driven past something that didn't sit right and told themselves, someone else will handle it? How many times have we scrolled past pain because it ruined the vibe? That horse in the desert isn't just one horse. It's a symbol. It's every being that's been left behind because caring took effort. And effort, let's be real, is something people avoid when they can. There's a reason stories like this hit so hard. They tap into something primal. Humans are wired to protect the vulnerable. Or at least we're supposed to be. When we don't, something inside us cracks. That's why seeing a man kneel down and offer water to a suffering horse feels powerful. It's not flashy. It's not heroic in the Hollywood sense. It's quiet. It's humble. And it's exactly what kindness usually looks like in real life. No applause. No viral moment. Just one being choosing not to look away. Kindness doesn't fix everything instantly. That horse isn't magically healed by one drink of water. But that moment matters. It says, I see you. And being seen can be the difference between giving up and holding on. That's true for animals and people. We underestimate how much impact a small act can have because we're obsessed with big wins. But the world doesn't change in one dramatic move. It shifts slowly, through choices made in silence. Cruelty, on the other hand, always has a price. Sometimes that price gets paid immediately. Sometimes it takes years. But it always comes due. A society that allows suffering to slide becomes numb, and numbness is dangerous. It's how injustice grows roots. When people stop reacting, stop caring, stop stepping in, cruelty starts to feel normal. That's when the line between right and wrong gets blurry. And once that line fades, it's hard to redraw. In the United States, we pride ourselves on being tough. We say things like suck it up and life ain't fair like they're badges of honor. But toughness without compassion is just hardness. It doesn't build anything. It just breaks stuff. Real strength shows up when you choose kindness even when it costs you time, money, or comfort. Especially then. That's what separates character from ego. This story isn't about shaming. It's about awareness. It's about reminding people that neglect isn't neutral. Doing nothing is still a choice. If you see an animal suffering and walk away, you're part of the story whether you like it or not. And yeah, not everyone can rescue a horse or call in professionals, but everyone can do something. Make a call. Report abuse. Offer water. Speak up. Silence helps the wrong side. Always has. There's also a bigger lesson here about power. Animals have none in our world. They can't advocate for themselves. They can't file complaints. They can't explain what hurts. They rely entirely on humans to be decent. When that decency fails, the consequences are brutal. And it makes you wonder, if we can't protect those who are completely dependent on us, what does that say about us? People love inspirational quotes, but inspiration without action is just decoration. Be kind sounds nice on a poster. It means something different when it requires effort. Kindness is inconvenient. It interrupts your plans. It challenges your excuses. It asks you to care when you're tired. That's why it's rare. But that's also why it matters so much. The man offering water to the horse isn't a savior. He's just doing what should have been done in the first place. And that's the wild part. Basic decency looks heroic in a world where neglect is common. We've lowered the bar so much that normal compassion feels extraordinary. That should bother us. Animals reflect our values. How we treat them says a lot about who we are when no one's watching. You can tell a lot about a person by how they handle power over something weaker than themselves. Do they exploit it, ignore it, or protect it? That choice shows up everywhere, not just with animals. It shows up in workplaces, families, communities. The patterns repeat. There's a quiet dignity in choosing kindness even when you're struggling yourself. The man in the image doesn't look rich or comfortable. He looks worn down, but he still kneels. He still shares what little he has. That's a reminder that compassion isn't about abundance. It's about priorities. People who care will find a way. People who don't will find an excuse. The horse doesn't know philosophy or morals. It only knows thirst, pain, and relief. When the water touches its mouth, there's a moment of trust, a moment where suffering pauses. That's not small. That's everything. For that moment, the world isn't just cruel. It's balanced. And balance is what keeps hope alive. Stories like this spread because people are hungry for reminders that goodness still exists. The news is heavy. Social media is loud. Everyone's arguing, flexing, chasing clout. A simple act of kindness cuts through all that noise. It reminds us who we're supposed to be. Not perfect, just decent. No one deserves this horse can also be read another way. No one deserves to be treated like that horse. Stripped of dignity, ignored, left to suffer. That's why the message resonates beyond animals. It speaks to anyone who's ever felt abandoned, overlooked, or used up. The pain might look different, but the feeling is the same. When we protect animals, we're also protecting our humanity. We're choosing empathy over apathy, and that choice shapes the kind of world we live in. A world that tolerates cruelty is a world that eventually turns on itself. A world that values kindness even when it's hard has a fighting chance. This isn't about guilt. It's about responsibility. Every generation inherits the moral tone of the one before it. What we normalize becomes tradition. If we normalize compassion, we raise people who care. If we normalize neglect, we raise people who look away. The horse in this story didn't choose its fate. We choose ours every day. Kindness doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're aware. It means you understand that life hits hard enough already, without adding to the damage. In a country that celebrates independence, it's easy to forget how connected everything is. What we do to the vulnerable echoes outward. It always does. At the end of the day, this story sticks because it's simple and uncomfortable. A thirsty horse. A man with water. A choice made or not made. That's it. No fancy words. No complex logic. Just a moment that asks, what would you do? And that question lingers long after the image fades. No one deserves this horse. Not because the horse is special, but because suffering without cause is wrong, period. And every time someone chooses kindness over cruelty, even in a small way, the world gets a little less broken. That might not trend. It might not go viral, but it matters. And in the long run, it's the only thing that ever has.